Hey guys, my name's Dee, this is the Heroine's Corner and welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to be doing my March TBR. Wait, my March wrap up. So, I finished 7 books in March. March was a very odd reading month, and I think I've realized it was odd because I was in a reading slump and I just never acknowledged that I was in a reading slump. So I was picking up books here, there, everywhere. Like I'm in the middle of so many books. Just to give you a glimpse, I'm in the middle of The Vanishing Calf, Luster, Small Island, Me, My Dad and the End of a Rainbow, Children of Blood and Bone. It's just, I'm in so many books and it's kind of stressing me out. I don't feel like I can be the reader that's in like many different books because I just feel stressed out that I'm gonna forget like all the plot details and whatnot. I read a mixture of books. Not a lot of them were on my TBR. I just like picked up a lot of books that weren't on my TBR, to be honest. But I think I had a decent reading month. One DNF. I have my first DNF. It's a shame, it was my classic, but okay, let me actually just get into the wrap up. First book I read in March was Lot by Charlotte von Reinhold, and this is an adult fiction novel, and we follow the protagonist of Matilda, and Matilda has these obsessions with certain historical people from the 1920s, and when she comes across a picture with a black woman who is in these very artistic, very queer circles, she basically wants to find out more. And this book was a 5-star read. I did a whole video about why you should read this book, so I won't talk about it too much in this video, but essentially this was one of the most interesting reading experiences I've had in a while. Just beautiful writing, lovely social commentary, a mixture of genres and themes. So like dark academia, we have like secret societies, we have historical fiction and mystery. Just there's a whole lot of things happening in this book, and surprisingly I never felt like the author wasn't doing them justice. I felt like the author was just doing every separate plot element really well, and that's rare in a book, because then like if there is a lot of different plot elements in a book, it can feel like some elements are stronger, some elements are weaker, but this book just felt like it was very solid all around. But yeah, as I said, I did do a review on this already, but if you haven't picked up Lot, please pick up Lot. It's one of my favorite books I've read this year, and it took me 2 weeks to read it, so I'm very glad it ended up as a 5-star read. The next book I picked up in March was My Sister the Serial Killer by Ian Braithwaite, and this is a literary fiction thriller kind of novel. That's how I've been hearing it described. And this book follows 2 sisters. One of them's a serial killer and the other one basically cleans up after her youngest sister murders someone, and the older sister has a crush on like a man who works in her hospital, and when her sister kind of meets this guy and gets his attention, the older sister is very concerned that the younger sister is going to kill the man, essentially. I really enjoyed this book. I think I'm give it around like 4 stars, 3.5 stars. It's a very quick read, very humorous read. Like I laughed a lot of times in here, but also I feel like there's a lot of heart in this book. Like even though I feel like a lot of people have said like, oh, it's very quick, very funny, and like yeah, that's true, but I feel like I really enjoyed the deeper moments in this book when it was a bit more grounded, and we delved into the sisters' relationship more and about their home life and about, you know what I mean. I feel like there was a lot of unexpected heart in this book, which I really enjoyed. But yeah, the sister is a serial killer, by the way, so there's no being around the bush about that. But I really enjoyed the ride while I was reading this book. It was just a very lovely book to read. And then the next book I read in April, the next book I read in March was The 392 by Ashley Hickson Lovins, and this is a book that was on my Black British TBR actually right from the start of this year. So The 392 is about a bus ride, and we have all these different personalities on this bus, and we jump into different people's headspaces, and the kind of thread that runs along each of these people's perspectives is that they think that a man is about to commit a terrorist attack on this bus. I'm really interested in time like restricted premises, like just books where it's just happening in this 1 hour or these couple of hours and that's it, that's the story. it's funny because I got to around the middle of this book and then I had to like run an errand. So I put the book down and I got on the bus. And it's so funny how this author was able to just mimic the experiences of like being on the bus and all these different personalities and people like just being in this one contained area. Like so I feel like the author did very well trying to like mimic that experience of being on a bus. I really enjoyed the cast of characters that were in this book. We have some old, some young, some of them are racist, some of them like to fetishize black women. It was a ride. It was a real ride. But yeah, I really enjoyed this book. And the end couple of pages, like, I'm usually a very silent reader. Like, I know a lot of people be like gasping and all that stuff, but I'm very silent, very contained with my emotions. But when I got to the end of this book, I was like, wow, are you for real? Like, oh my god, like, that was me at the end of this book. So yeah, I really enjoyed this book. 4.5 stars. And then the next book I want to talk about is Wings of Ebony by J.L. And this was actually one of my most anticipated releases of 2021. Like, it's really up there in the top 5. So this is a YA novel, and we follow the protagonist of Rue. And Rue basically finds out she's half god right after her mom is killed. So she's taken to this fantastical world for a whole year, and then she comes back to her community. Her community is basically under threat by fantastical people from that world who's like filling the community with like drugs and just violence and gangs and all that stuff. So she's basically trying to figure out what's going on with her community, but also, you know, about her own identity, about being half god. So I was kind of disappointed in this book, to be honest, guys. Like, I don't know why, like, if it just didn't hit my expectations. A lot of the things that happen in this book just seem very surface level, from the social commentary to just like the plot. Rue also jumps back and forth a lot from the human world to the magical world, and I feel like the book just needed to stay in one place and to flesh it out completely, so I feel rooted, so I feel like I care about what's going on. It's a fast read, fun read, so you know, it wasn't absolutely awful. 3 stars, but you know what I mean, I was expecting a bit more. But again, I feel like teenage D would absolutely eat this up and would love it, but just not teenage D. I don't know. It just, I don't know if I want to continue on the series, because I'm pretty sure this is going to be a series. I don't think I'm going to continue on with it. It has a lot of black girl magic. I love how feisty and angry Rue was, and how just there was no respectability politics in this. Rue was just real straight up, and I love how she loved her community. And yeah, I don't know. This book was just, it's just a slight disappointment for me, but it was a fast and fun read. The next book I read in March was actually an audiobook, and that was The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo. And wow, this book was a 5-star read. It's a YA contemporary novel, in verse as well. So this book really reads like poetry, and the book is centered on this teenage girl who is really facing the pressures from her mom to like obey the church and to go to church and to be a church girl. But she's growing up and she's having all these different thoughts and feelings, and she finds her outlet in poetry. And listening to this book, because it was also narrated by Elizabeth Acevedo, was just brilliant, like, narration, by the way. So yeah, this book was just absolutely amazing. Like, I like this book so much, I can't articulate and put into words why I liked it. It was just a whole experience, just a very short, intense, but satisfying coming of age kind of chapter. It's just a very beautiful story about being a young woman, and how society and like how institutions almost like punish you for being a young woman, and whether that be like the family institution, whether that be church, whether that just be wider society. And I really loved that theme and absolutely adored this book. I can't wait to read more of Acevedo's works, because I do know she has 2 different books out, Clap on New Land and With Fire on High. So the next book I read was Minor Detail by Adania Shibley, and this was translated by Elizabeth Jacquet, I believe. And this is a historical fiction novella. It's a very short story. We find ourselves in 1949, and a Palestinian woman is kidnapped, gang raped, and killed. And then for the second part of this book, we follow a young woman who finds out about this woman, and she basically just wants to find out more information about her and what went down. So yep, obviously this book, trigger warnings for like rape, sexual assault. This book was really something, really something. And while I was just reading it, I was just thinking, this book should be taught in schools. And I know, like, obviously this book deals with like heavy topics, so it probably won't be taught in schools, but just the way the writing was and how the story was crafted, it was just very brilliant. The book is really about like how people and cultures are erased, some of them in brutal ways, like the young woman who is raped at the start of this book, but also in just the gradual toil of war and displacement. And this book was just absolutely marvelous. It has been shortlisted for the International Booker Prize for this year, so well deserved. But yeah, this book was just really hard hitting, very beautiful. It needs to be taught in schools. Like, it's just one of the best pieces of writing I've read in a while. And then the last book I read for March was The Lonely Londoners by Samuel Salvan. And I think I misspoke in one of my videos saying that this is a Black British classic. I meant to say it was like a Caribbean British classic because the author is from Trinidad, and both of his parents are actually Indian. So yeah, so this book really centers on the experiences of several Caribbean men who come from the Caribbean to the UK after the end of World War II. You know, the Windrush generation. I don't need to spell it out. This is a DNF. Yeah, if I did, I forgot to say that I DNF this book with around 50 pages to go, and it's kind of like, did I have to DNF it? But also I was just having a very tedious time with this book. This book was just very masculine. Like, I don't say that like, oh, I can't read books about like male perspectives, but like, it felt like I walked into a locker room, like a boys' locker room. It just felt way too male, and it didn't help that there was a lot of just misogyny in the book. Like it's probably like the characters like back in the day, you know, being misogynistic, which is casual, but like it didn't help with the fact like this book being so centered around the male experience, and then also just the casual kind of misogyny and the objectification of women. I just wasn't here for it. And like, maybe I might pick this up later on in the year because I did, you know, I only had 50 pages to go. But yeah, it just was a tedious reading experience for me. I wasn't getting a lot from it. That's the thing. I wasn't getting a lot from it. It wasn't changing my perspective. I'm not saying every book has to be like changing the world, but it just felt like I was just reading about a bunch of men like getting by, objectifying women, and yeah, I just wasn't here for it. So these were the books I read in March, as well as The Poet X and Minor Details. This was an okay reading month, guys. Like, we have 2 disappointing reads and 1 DNF, but the 392 really blew my expectations away. The My Sister Serial Killer was such a fun and entertaining read. Lot was just brilliant on all levels. The Poet X was just immersive and passionate and beautiful, and Minor Details was genius. That is it for today's reading wrap up. Please let me know down below if you've read any of these books, what your thoughts on them, how your reading month was, if I should give The Lonely Londoners another go. And yeah, that's it, guys. Please remember to like, subscribe, follow me on Twitter and my Bookstagram. I'll see you guys soon on another video. Bye.